Jacob, and tonight I am going to be getting you, yes you, ready to go on a first date. Now, I know that the vast majority of you probably aren't going on a first date tonight, but a lot of you might wish that you were. So, if you're one of those people, then join me in my fantasy land as I pretend to be your best friend who is grilling you with questions, trying to find out how you feel about dating in this crazy, psychotic world we live in, and helping you get excited for what could be the start of the rest of your life with somebody else. So, before we get started, the reason I wanted to make this video is because, as you all should know by now, I love to talk about love. And I was trying to come up with something to record this week, and I started thinking about my first date with my girlfriend and how excited yet terrified I was to meet her and to get to know her. You know, you think about all the questions you want to ask the person, and you're also trying to figure out how they feel about you, and you're also trying to give good responses back and be funny, and all of it is just this storm of beauty and terror. So, I just love this kind of stuff, and so, whether or not you are active in the dating scene right now, if you want to pretend like you're about to go meet somebody, that's what we're going to be doing tonight. So, basically, what I'm going to do is ask you some questions that kind of help me feel out where you're at in your dating life cycle and maybe ease some of those nerves. Because as you know, first dates can be very intimidating. If you're a naturally anxious person, or you're introverted, or you are hanging all your hopes and dreams of getting love and affection on the person you're about to meet, it can be scary. But like I said, it could be the start of something great. So, no matter where you're at on the spectrum, we are going to navigate this together, and hopefully by the end of this video, you are going to be prepared to put on a Riz masterclass the next time you see somebody. So, now that that's all out of the way, let's just get started. Okay, so the first question I want to ask you is really just so I can get a pulse on where you're at in terms of your sentiment about love and relationships. So really that's the question. I kind of just wanted to know, how do you feel about relationships and dating right now? As I'm sure you are well aware, dating in the modern world, it can be a little bit challenging, to say the least. You know, you are at any moment on a date with somebody subject to manipulation, gaslighting, love bombing, ghosting, serial killers, and a bunch of other pleasant things. So, I just want to know what your thoughts are on dating at the moment. Are you interested in dating the next person that you go on a date with? Which, yes, for the sake of the video, I'm going to pretend you are about to go on a date, so pretend with me. What are your intentions with this person? Are you looking to get into a relationship? Are you just looking for a hookup? Or maybe something a little longer term, like, what do they call it? A summer fling? Are you not really sure what you're doing? Are you just sad and lonely and wanting somebody to tell you that you're pretty or handsome? whatever it is. I place no judgment. You do you. But I think it's a good question to ask because obviously there are two people in a relationship, so I would caution you to think about what you're looking for when you go on a first date, because you don't want to walk into a situation where you're ready to take this more seriously than the other person, and vice versa. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're looking for something casual and the other person is looking for something more long-term or even permanent. I feel like that is where problems in so many relationships start. Even just in the ones I've seen with my friends, are where two people go and hang out and they inevitably end up, they like each other, which of course is the bare minimum. You both have to like each other for some sort of relationship to form, but they aren't on the same page about their intentions. And I feel like sometimes that's because they don't have the conversation, but more often than not, it's because one person kind of hides their intentions from the other person because they want to hook up, or they just want to have somebody around them because they don't like being alone. So, I will ask you one more time before we move on. What do you think about this date that you're going to go on? Are you looking for a real, solid relationship? Or do you just want to keep it lighthearted because that's the stage of life that you're at? I think it's important to think about and also to address on the date. I know that's kind of an awkward conversation to have, but I feel like there are just some things you gotta get out of the way on a first date that could lead to pain and suffering for either yourself or the other person if you don't. So, now that I kind of have a feeling about where you're at with things and what you're looking to accomplish on this first date, the next question I have is, where are you going to go on this date? Are you thinking more of like nice restaurant vibes, something that you kind of have to dress up for, or are you more of a casual person who just wants to go to Chick-fil-A or Qdoba or Raising Cane's and have some solid fast food and a good conversation? And also maybe it's because you're broke and you don't want to spend a lot of money on the date, or you don't want them to spend a lot of money if they're going to pay. Or are you not really a eat on the first date person? A couple of my friends actually never go to restaurants on their first dates because they don't like to eat in front of the other person. They feel awkward and they feel like embarrassed. So, I don't know, is that how you are as well, or are you cool with it? And if you're not, where else would you go? I know some people go to the movies, which in my last video I said that I think that's stupid because, not stupid, okay, I think it's an interesting decision because you don't get to talk to the person that much at the movies, which maybe if you are more anxious or shy could be good if the other person is as well, because you guys can talk a little bit before the movie, but as soon as it starts you kind of just get to hang out and be in each other's presence but not have to actually talk. But if you're trying to get to know the person, then I would probably suggest somewhere where you can talk. Maybe you go for a walk in the park, or you go mini golfing, or maybe you just get ice cream, or I don't know, maybe it could be as casual as just them coming over to your place or you coming over to theirs. But I would also caution you with that because whether you like it or not, that does come with a set of expectations for some people. I think you know what I'm alluding to. So, just something to think about as you plan where this is going to be taking place. Okay, the next question that I have for you is, do you have an outfit picked out yet? And so I'm going to break outfit that you just know is going to hit every time, no matter where you're going and what you're doing. Maybe it's just a shirt that's kind of like a statement piece, or maybe you have a whole matching outfit with a color vibe and aesthetic, or maybe it's just a nice pair of shoes, or honestly it could even just be jewelry. But I'm just wondering, do you have any of those things picked out for a date in advance, or do you have an outfit that you know you're going to wear on a first date no matter who, what, when, where, or why? I'm going to let you think about that for a second while I take a sip of water. When I went on my first date with my girlfriend, I actually was out of town on a work trip, so I really only had clothes that I was going to wear to work, so they were like a little nicer. I would call it kind of business casual, but ironically that was kind of the way that I was dressing at the time. So I wore these blue Dickies pants, just like the workwear pants that are more straight-legged and a little loose, and this also navy blue Ralph Lauren like polo jacket that zipped up that I found at a thrift store for like $5. And so they kind of matched, but not really. But I thought it looked cool, so that's what I wore, and it worked out. So, next question that I have for you is, let me pull it up. How do you feel? Oh my god, this is such an important question. I need you to really lock in for this one. How do you feel about texting versus calling? I guess you could also substitute FaceTiming for calling, because a lot of people do that. But I think you know the question I'm asking. Are you the type of person who would rather text somebody or have them text you if you're going to make plans, or even if you're just talking during the day and making conversation? Or do you prefer to call somebody on the phone or FaceTime them? I think that is such an important and overlooked communication style type of thing that you should consider before you start dating a person. Maybe you don't bring it up on the first date, but it might be a fun first date question, because I've seen people in my own life and online who really don't like to text. My best friend, actually, this is exactly how he is. He hates texting. Whether it's just because he wants to catch up with a girl about her day, or if they're having like some sort of disagreement, he always wants to call them or FaceTime them, because in his words, not only is it easier to have the conversations, but especially when you're having some sort of dispute, it's always easier to deal with things on the phone, like using your voice. This is obviously if you can't meet up in person. And I actually agree with him. I used to like texting a lot, but in recent years, I try to spend less time on my phone. And so I'd rather just have like a good solid FaceTime session at the end of the day, or maybe a quick phone call during the day to catch up, because that's how I am. But maybe you're different, so that's what I'm wondering. Do you prefer to just pick up the phone and call somebody, or does that make you kind of nervous and shy, so you'd rather text them? I think this is also a dilemma that a lot of couples get into, is they become very dependent on texting each other a lot, and so they almost have no time apart, because even if they're not physically together, they're constantly in contact with each other and constantly communicating. So I think that's something to consider with this person that you're about to go on a date with. How have you guys been communicating so far, and has it been fine for you, or have you been kind of annoyed about it? Just curious. Okay, my next question is, questions that you really want to ask them on this date. I feel like, obviously, most of us go into first dates with the basic questions like your name and your age. I'm joking. But things like, what do you do for work? Or what are your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun? And what's your family like? What are your friends like? Of course, those are all important things to learn about the other person because they are probably some of the most fundamental components of that person. And actually this is kind of a debate that I have had with myself in the past, which is, what is the line between asking questions that are interesting and just trying too hard and being weird? Because one thing that I used to do in high school when I liked a girl, because I wanted to stand out and I didn't just want to be like every other guy, being boring and asking stupid questions or trying to play 20 questions. I don't know if any of you guys remember that game, but I wanted to think outside of the box, and honestly it was just a way to try and show them that I was trying hard and making an effort. What I would do is try to ask them really weird, random questions. Let me try and come up with one, like, I don't know, describe your perfect, like a perfect day in your life, which actually isn't that weird, but I would say, like, I'm really fucking up because I swear to God I would ask the most random and honestly strange questions to some of these girls, and I could tell that they were like, what the fuck, why did you ask that? But I can't think of any right now. So give me 5 seconds and I will come up with one, because I will not mentally let myself move on with this video or the rest of my life if I can't think of one. Okay, I think I got one. I would ask things like, I lied, I don't have one. I'm kind of just blanking right now. Okay, so anyways, I will come back to you with one, but I need to move on now, so I do want to know your opinion. Do you think it's a good idea to ask, some out-of-the-box, more interesting questions to the person you're going to go on a date with? Or do you think that's trying too hard and it feels kind of like desperate, or like, oh, this person's trying to be different and they want to stand out? Like, some people can kind of see through that. So what I did for you is I came up with a few questions that I think you should ask this person on your date that are unique but not too crazy. Okay, actually, I came up with an example. I would just ask things like, oh, what do you want to name your future kids or your dog? Or like, describe to me, okay, here's a perfect one. Describe to me your perfect, like your dream house. I know that's a pretty innocent question, but the reason it would look weird is because I would literally ask like 6 of them in a row. Like, it would feel like I was just interviewing the person, and none of us like to feel like that. So first thing I would urge you to do is don't interview them. Keep it casual and use some of these questions, because I spent time on these, so you better fucking use them. Okay. I'm sure you can hear my neighbor's dog doing what sounds like killing somebody right now. First question, keep it basic. What kinds of things are you into, right? Very fundamental. Definitely ask them that. However, I would layer that with this question. Are those things you've always been into since you were a kid? Or are they more recent interests and hobbies? And that right there is a perfect way to find out more about them as a child and growing up, without having to be so direct, like, okay, so what were you like as a kid? Which isn't bad either, but you see what I meant at the start. We're trying to put on a Riz masterclass. So we gotta be low-key and transitional about some of these things. Next question you want to ask: how would your friend friends describe you. If the person you're going on a date with is like me and most people, and they tend to be more self-critical and negative, they might be those things when they describe themselves. Like they might not give themselves some of the attributes or positive things that they might actually be. Like my friends would describe me as, I've asked them this question before, like creative and funny. And I like to think that I'm those things, but I would never actually say I was those things if somebody asked me what I was like, because it feels like arrogant or something. So this is a way to circumnavigate this person's crippling self-hatred and find out who they really are. So ask that. Next question. Do you watch any YouTube? This is debatably the most important question you're going to ask the entire night. You can tell so much about a person. One, by whether they watch YouTube or not. But two, by what kinds of YouTube and YouTubers they watch. As you probably know, because we're sitting here on YouTube together, the kind of content and media that you consume really says a lot about you. In fact, a lot of us spend more time with some of the people we engage with online than we do with people in real life. So, yes, a first date is great because you get to find out about what this person's real life is like, but maybe try and do a little bit of subtle digging into their digital life and see what they're into. So another follow-up to that is obviously, what kind of music do you listen to? What's your favorite movie? Are you watching any TV shows right now? All that. Sorry, I just felt like I was throwing up in my mouth. I wasn't. That was disgusting, sorry. And then another question that I think is a good one is, what was the most recent book that you read? I feel like you can really see what stage of life a person is in, judging upon the books that they're reading. If somebody tells you that they're reading a self-help or personal development book, then, maybe take that as a sign that they're working on themselves, and this might be a good person to hang out around because they're trying to get better. If somebody's reading a fiction book, then maybe they have a more active imagination. If they're reading a finance book, then you know that they are probably sociopathic, but they would be financially responsible if you were to end up in a couple with them. So, you see what I'm getting at here? Okay, I think that is all the questions I've got that I can offer you to ask the other person, but I still have, looks like 2 more questions for you before I let you go on this date. The first one is, how do you deal with first date nerves? So obviously, as I mentioned at the start of the video, first dates can be extremely nerve-wracking and intimidating. And I think different people have different ways of dealing with them. So, when I was going on my first date with my beautiful, wonderful girlfriend, who is probably listening and who I love so much and miss, I was out of town and I was in a hotel. And I had flown in that day, and I had to wake up at like 5 a.m., so I truthfully just ordered food and sat and watched the local news on this shitty little TV because I had nothing else to do, and I was so tired that I couldn't even find the energy to get nervous. And that's actually a 5% lie, because about 10 minutes before she got there, because she drove to me, I started to absolutely shit my pants, and I called my best friend, and I was low-key screaming because I was tweaking out. And I started blasting phone speaker, trying to hype myself up. That's what I always do when I'm nervous. I blast music and try to, distract myself. But I know that's just me and not everybody. So, going on this first date, other than talking to me, of course, what do you do to deal with those nerves? Do you also call a friend, or do you listen to a podcast, or read a book, or stare at a wall and try to shut your brain off, or maybe slam your head against a wall to try and shut your brain off? Or do you just treat it like any other day, because that's what it is to you? Or do you write your vows, just in case it goes really well and you guys run off to Vegas together? How do you deal with being really stressed out and anxious before a first date? I want you to tell me. And I know you guys know at this point, but you can answer any of these questions down below in the comments, because I am genuinely interested to hear how you guys deal with different elements of first dates. So feel free if you're still listening. And if you are still listening, then I've got one final question for you. And that, my friend, is, are you excited for this date, or are you dreading it? And now I'm going to break character again. When you think about the next time that you're going to go on a date, does it make you feel more excited, or anxious, or just neutral? I have a friend who has dated quite a few girls at this point, and so sometimes we have this conversation, and when it comes up, he says, I'll ask him, okay, are you looking to date anybody again, or are you kind of just working on yourself in your life? And he says, honestly, I'm not even thinking about it, and if it were to come up, I don't even feel like I would be excited, because I'm just so used to it not working out that I don't get that, I don't get that excited for things like that anymore, which I think is kind of sad, and I hope that changes. But I want to know kind of what your disposition towards that is. When you think about going on a first date, does it fill you up with hope and excitement and make you feel like you might be on the cusp of something new and invigorating? Or are you more so thinking oh my god, I'm just about to go on another date with somebody who is either going to fuck me over, or cheat on me, or treat me shitty, or ghost me? In other words, do you have a more negative outlook on things? I really hope you don't, because wherever you are in life, it really only takes one person or situation to change things, and I know that is foolishly optimistic, but I just feel like life is better when you are excited about the things that are in front of you, and you might not always have reasons to be, but I think when it comes to going on a first date with somebody, it's worth